Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, January 25th. This is episode 93 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Make sure to please like and subscribe here on YouTube. And we have made it the final weekend of the NFL season that consists of more than one game. Championship Sunday, Broncos, Patriots in Denver, and Rams, Seahawks in front of the 12s in Seattle later today for the right to go to the Super Bowl 2 weeks from today in Santa Clara. So a lot to dive into. We'll start off with some game previews of both of these games, dive into matchups, the biggest takeaways, the biggest keys for both of these teams in both matchups. And we'll also get into some of the latest around the head coaching carousel around the NFL. It continues to be red hot as the weeks go on here, as 30, or I should say 28 of the 32 teams are in the offseason. And after today, there will only be 2 teams remaining. So, DiMari, how's it going? Another week, Championship Sunday. And, play for the right to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we're doing good. We got 4 very good teams today. Super Bowl prediction on my end, at least from one half, is still looking good. So, rooting the Rams today. Hopefully, the Rams can at least get me halfway there. But yeah, 4 very good teams, 2 very good games. Very unfortunate news out of Denver, of course, for those that probably missed it last week. No way you could have missed it, but no Bo Nix today for the Broncos, breaking his ankle or a part of his ankle, like second to last play before last week's game. So that kind of sucks that he got them that this far just for him to miss today. But still gonna be a pretty good game out there in Denver. And like you said, you mentioned the coaching carousel. There's been some shockers. There's been some big news with a lot of coaches that maybe we didn't see. We saw some surprising hires, which you might get into it today. We might not get all into it today, but that's for next week. But a lot of news has been going around the NFL, and honestly, I feel like this is set up for a great offseason. But let's get to championship week before we even worry about the offseason.
Yeah, definitely. And you make a good point by that. We'll start with the championship games today, but this is shaping up to be a very good offseason, and this is shaping up just next year. There's going to be a lot of new faces and new places. I mean, McDermott's been in Buffalo for 9 years. You get he's gone. You get the 2 major changes in the AFC North. Like the NFL next year, the NFL landscape, it's going to look a lot different. John Harbaugh coaching the Giants. Mike Tomlin's not even going to be in the league, at least for next season. That's what it seems like, potentially 2027. He gets back into the NFL similar to the Sean Payton path, spends a year maybe on TV, and then takes a job somewhere else. But we are talking about a lot of change, and we're talking about a 2026 season that's going to feature some teams and some coaches that look a lot different and some coaching staffs that look a lot different. And this has been one of the better coaching carousels that I remember with all of the big names on the market. So we'll definitely dive into that a little bit later on. But we'll start today with the Broncos and the Patriots, the AFC title game, little rematch from the right to go to Super Bowl 50. Fast forward 10 years later, and we've got, instead of Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, we've got Drake May and Jarrett Stidham. I just want to start with just want to go back a little bit to that Broncos-Bills game. Number one, what was your thoughts on some of the last few calls of that game? And then just the whole Bo Nix injury, because if you would have told me, spoiler alert, but that I would be putting Jarrett Stidham on this thumbnail of today's video for the AFC Championship game at the beginning of the season, I would have thought you were crazy. The fact that Jarrett Stidham is playing in an AFC title game in 2026 is just ridiculous. So the way that game ended, what was your thoughts on the calls? Because that's still been a hot topic throughout the weekend, and the whole Bo Nix injury, where Sean Payton says that it was the second to last play of the game before the Marvin's Mims play. But you watch it and you're kind of confused on how he got hurt. He does the interview. He walks off the field fine. I get, adrenaline's a real thing, obviously, but here we are. It's Jarrett Stidham gets the start.
We're being honest, Sean McDermott should still have a job. And I guess that will give you my answer of what I feel. I think Buffalo was cheated out of that game. There was an exact call, I believe, the next day with New England, if I'm correct. It might have been Stephon Diggs. A same exact call that went in the way of the wide receiver. So I understand there was different angles showing different things. But from the angle that I saw, Brandon Cooks had possession when his knee hit the ground, and then the ball was ripped away. And I always thought that possession goes in favor of the receiver, in favor of the offense, but I guess not. So honestly, we should be talking about Buffalo playing today. And I know we talked about this last week for your hate watch. You were glad to see at least Buffalo not there. You still get New England there, but no, I think they were cheated out of their shot. And that was great because he forgot to play football. But I'll not even get to CJ Stroud. I can go on a rant of hate watch with that. But yeah, Buffalo's cheated. I mean, the refs I feel have been too impactful in these games, and it clearly showed last week in that Buffalo game. So you feel bad for him. You feel bad for Josh Allen. At least some of us do because they should be playing today instead of Jarrett Stidham and the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously Sean McDermott would still have a job. I am curious if this was like a Harbaugh Tomlin situation where even if the Bills lost this weekend, would then McDermott still get fired because they still didn't reach their ultimate goal of the Super Bowl? I am curious. We'll look back on that play many years down the line and the impact of it. Like if the Bills swing and miss on their next head coach, how would things differ if that Brandon Cooks catch was a catch? I'm just at the point now with the Bills where so many heartbreaking losses. Look, I was on the hate watch. I'm happy they lost, but it's a Bills playoff loss when if there's not another team that loses in the playoffs where after the game we're talking about potentially changing the rules, whether it's the overtime rule. Now it's, okay, we need to adjust the catch rule. We need to make the catch rule more clear. Like that's only the Bills. It just shows the amount of heartbreaking losses where we've had to change rules or want to change rules because of the way they lose these games. And then you had the pass interference call or the missed pass interference call on Brandon Cooks, which was rough. But at the end of the day, I view it as you had the 5 turnovers and you turn the ball over 5 times. It's tough to win a game that way. Now, in terms of today's game with Jarrett Stidham, just the whole Jarrett Stidham story is wild. This is a guy that had the easiest job in the world here for the entire season, where Bo Nix is playing not at an incredibly high level, but he's out there. They're winning games. He plays every single game. He's played every single game across the last 2 seasons. He hasn't been hurt. And the best job in the world is to be a backup quarterback behind a quarterback that doesn't get hurt and behind a quarterback of a team that's successful. So just what are your thoughts on the whole Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham thing and the whole Jarrett Stidham starting an AFC title game? Is this Nick Foles all over again?
Do you remember 2 years ago, I think this is when Bo Nix got drafted, and they're interviewing Jarrett Stidham, and he tells the reporters, like, hey, I think I'm an NFL starter. I deserve to be an NFL starter. 2 years later, it's your time to prove it. I mean, honestly, this is a guy with a lot of experience. So, for those that's coming to this game probably thinking that New England's going to run away with this game because Jarrett Stidham is a backup quarterback. I mean, this guy has spent some time in the league as a starter. So you're not just throwing some scrub out there. You're not just throwing Joe Milton out there. Yeah, that's a Joe Milton stray. This is a guy with some experience out there that can play ball. So I think with the defense behind him, as good as the defense has been for Denver, that's kind of what got you here. That is what he's going to have to lean on today. Still got to go out there and score points, of course. Still got to go out there and get players involved, which I'm going to talk about a little later. But Cortland Sutton, who did absolutely nothing for half of football yesterday. Your running backs, Troy Franklin, like those guys, Jarrett Stidham has to get them involved. And I think Sean Payton's going to do a very great job of that. It's going to be establish the run game, get R.J. Harvey involved in multiple ways, run the run game in the pass game. That's how he's going to be successful today if they find a way to win.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you look at Jarrett Stidham's career as a starter, he's 1-3, with that only win coming late in the 23 season when he actually came in and replaced Russell Wilson when he got benched in Denver. And, he spent some time with New England, a little bit of a Jarrett Stidham revenge game opportunity today. He was actually drafted by New England, 4th round, pick 133 of the 2019 draft, and went to Vegas and now has been with Denver for the last 3 seasons. I look at today's game, and I'm right there with you. You have to kind of just force Stidham. I don't know if force Stidham is the right word to use, but he's just got to – if he could just manage the game, you're going to put yourself in a spot to win because this is a defense that's going to be able to go out there and get stops. It's a defense that should be able to match up well against Drake May and this Patriots offense. And we'll dive into Drake May and all them in a second. But let's be honest. if it wasn't for CJ Stroud throwing 4 interceptions, there's a good chance that the Patriots don't win that game next week or last week. CJ Stroud was a disaster. I think a lot of people are covering over the fact that Drake May fumbled 4 times. He lost 2 of them, and he had an interception. He turned the ball over 3 times himself. But when you have an opposing team that turns the ball over 5 times with 4 of those coming off the arm of the quarterback, you're gonna win that game. So I think it's the big thing for Stidham is limit the turnovers. And I know that sounds obvious, but limit the turnovers, just manage the game. Don't feel the need to go out there and try and put the team on your back. He's not capable of doing that. Just get to the ball to the open guy, manage the game, limit the turnovers, because you saw what happened last week with CJ Stroud and the Texans against what is a very strong New England defense, a very strong schematic New England defense. That's what I look at in this game. And I'm totally agree with you with this run game. This run game's got to get going. I mean, last week they did nothing. And there's been a large portion of the season where they haven't done a whole lot. But this has got to be a game where RJ Harvey gets involved. Even somebody like a Jaleel McLaughlin, you've got to find a way to get something going in the run game. Get some short, quick completions early on. Get Stidham involved in this game. Get him comfortable early on. There's going to be a lot of nerves. There's going to be, a lot of pressure on him. We're talking about one of the biggest stories in sports right now with Stidham and all the attention he's getting. So there's going to be a lot of pressure there early on in this game in front of the home crowd. Some short, easy completions, and then try and get the run game involved. Now, in terms of receiving-wise, receiving-wise, Stidham-wise, like stat line-wise, what do you think is the realistic expectation from a passing perspective? Now, obviously, Sutton's a main piece. They've got Marvin Mims involved a good amount last week. When you look at he had the 8 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. He had a really big day. Touchdown hitting the cameraman, which looked like he was hurt for a second on that play. You look at him as another big game today?
I think it's going to be a Troy Franklin game. I think so. Obviously New England, let's say, they're probably going to have Gonzo following Cortland Sutton. If I had to take a guess, we're going to see the same thing on the other side, just getting a little ahead of myself here. Same thing on the other side. We probably have Surtain following Diggs. I think that's how it's going to go. This is kind of for all the marbles. This is where you put all the pieces in. You have your best player on their best player and see who can win that battle for 60 minutes of football. So if Cortland Sutton is limited, again, this time with Gonzo, of course, somebody else is going to have to step up. And after Marvin Mims had a pretty big week last week, I don't think Mike Vrabel's going to let that happen again. I think this is a game where Stidham and Troy Franklin, any reps that they got this week in practice is going to come in huge. And that's the X factor between Mims and, again, RJ Harvey. You already mentioned the run game, but also in the pass game, a very good dual threat back. Those two have to have big games today in order for them to be successful and in order for Stidham to just get comfortable and settle into that game as well.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at this Broncos run defense, and I wrote this down and I wanted just to pull it up. Or not run defense, apologies. Rushing offense. Just going back to the lack of rushing so far. It's only been one game, so it's a little skewed, but they're second to worst right now in rushing offense because they only had 70 yards last week. Now it's only one game, but the only team worse than them was Pittsburgh, who in their one game only rushed for 63 yards against that Texans defense, who, of course, that was a game where they got obliterated in. But you look at the remaining teams, they've got statistically the worst rushing offense left. And that's got to change today. And to your point with Troy Franklin, somebody to keep an eye on there. Same thing with Marvin Mims. I think, too, this is a very big factor in today's game. You had the bad little Jordan Humphrey drop last week in the end zone. Something like that can't happen. You can overcome that. And let's be honest, Bo Nix hasn't played at an incredibly high level this year. I mean, we've both been critical of him throughout the season. We both had very high expectations for him. And sure, if he didn't get hurt, he'd be playing for an AFC title game. But it's been not still the play that we expected. But today's one of those days where you can't afford those costly drops. You might be able to overcome those costly drops when your defense forces 5 turnovers and Bo Nix is able to, late in the game, make some big throws and win that game. But like if you have another Lil Jordan Humphrey drop or another a drop in the end zone, and that's the difference between walking away with 7 and 3. That's going to build up over time, slowly build up over time. And Stidham's, simply put, not trying to be mean, but simply put, just not good enough to overcome that. So that's something too. You've got to try and play mistake-free football from that standpoint too if you're Denver. Just some other things, I guess, on Denver is defensively, or I guess we could kind of shift over now to New England's offense, Denver's defense. So from a New England perspective, last week was, can I just say this? I don't want to be,
bad.
This is hate watch, okay? I'm on New England hate watch. Can we name an easier playoff run? I mean, seriously, they've gone through playoff Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud through 4 interceptions. Don't even get me started on CJ Stroud. Like, what are we doing? What a disaster. And then we get Jared Stidham. And they're not even playing well. Justin Herbert was that bad. And I want to give credit to their defense. Look, their defense has been very strong this year. Don't get me wrong. But, come on. And I know, and it's the defense too, by the way, which is important. Terrell Williams has been out with some health issues since earlier in the year, their defensive coordinator. Zach Kerr's the one that's calling plays now. He is the inside linebackers coach. So even with the changes that they've had defensively on the defensive staff, their defense has still been elite. So I want to give them credit for that. But honestly, getting ready for this pod and looking through New England and just some of the numbers and things like that, they're not impressive. What they've done so far in the playoffs, not impressive. They've scored 1 touchdown against the Chargers. They turned the ball over 3 times last week. If it wasn't for the 4 turnovers from CJ Stroud, they'd probably lose that game. The fact that it was still a game is an indictment on New England. You turn the ball over 4 times, you should win that game by 20-plus points. So I guess just what are your thoughts on New England and this whole playoff run?
I think I'm right there with you. I mean, offensively, which is so insane considering Drake May's in the running for MVP, but offensively, they have not looked good offensively throughout this run. This is a team that was one of the better offenses all throughout the regular season. So you try to take it with a grain of salt because, like, you played a Chargers defense, which wasn't great. They weren't bad. They were very inconsistent. So there was never really a flat line with that Chargers defense, but they showed up in that New England game when they needed to. They stood their ground. Obviously, Houston's defense is probably one of the better defenses that we have seen in the NFL in quite some time. You still got to score points, though. You still got to go out there and score points, and they weren't doing that. They were moving the ball, but they couldn't get in the field goal range. So it's kind of tough, and I'm glad you bring that up because you look at this game, and it's not like the offense has been rolling for the past 2 playoff games, and now you come into Denver, and you're like, okay, they're finally going to click. They're going to get it together. They're going to figure it out. You can't trust that offense today against the defense. This is going to be the best defense that they probably faced in all the playoffs because they haven't looked good the previous 2 playoff games. So if, Drake May, again, you are an MVP favorite right now, you have to play like it today because so far Drake May has not looked good. This offense has not looked good. And truthfully, like you said, luckily for New England, you've played Justin Herbert, who loses brain cells every time he steps foot into playoff football time. And CJ Stroud can't protect the football with his life. So for New England, I mean, it's been a big Mickey Mouse run.
Did you see just quick side note on Herbert? Did you see, Joey Maruno?
Yeah.
Do you see that Mike McDaniel, Jim Harbaugh interview? That was fantastic. And I think that's a good hire. I do, because infuse a little bit of creativity. But I mean, we could do a whole pod on Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud because I was always been a big CJ Stroud believer and supporter, but it's gone to a point now. It's like, all right, we've gone significantly worse each of these last 2 seasons. This season was even worse than last season. And you fired the offensive coordinator, brought in Nick Caley, and you're still not playing to the level you were in your rookie season. It's time to start to have a conversation about CJ Stroud in the future there in Houston because he's clearly limiting their ceiling because that defense is more than capable of winning a Super Bowl. That defense can stop anybody. But quarterback throwing 4 picks, different story. From New England standpoint, I agree. I mean, they haven't. It's weird because you have the MVP front runner, and when you have an MVP front runner, like the way we're going to obviously preview the Rams game, we're going to talk about that offense and look at that offense and see the high power potential that it has and what it's done all year. You don't look at this Patriots offense and feel the same way. Here's my big thing with today's game, and this is specifically just from New England standpoint too, because Denver last week, from a turnover perspective, it wasn't awful. Other than, they forced the 5 turnovers, but themselves, I believe Denver only had the Bo Nix interception. I believe that was the only turnover. If New England wants to win this game, it really is both of these teams. I look at this game coming down to the turnover battle because you look at, right, we just talked about the importance of Stidham just taking care of the football, not trying to be Superman out there, just get the ball to the open man, manage the game, try and get the run game going. Try and get some long drives, wear down this New England defense, win time of possession. But from Denver's defensive perspective, they kind of play a little bit more of that bend but don't break defense. And we saw that a little bit last week where teams will move the ball on them. But when it comes to the red zone, and Vance Joseph is very, very vocal about this. And they were actually talking about this last week on the podcast, or not the podcast, the pregame show, about when you get to the red zone, those plays are like 4-point plays. It's the difference between 7 and 3. And they've been very strong in the red zone. Point being here is New England's going to be able to move the football, but I look at the turnover battle as a big factor because you look at last week, New England, right? You have the 4 turnovers total, and you have, or the 4 fumbles rather, and the interception, 3 total turnovers from Drake May. Drake May's fumbled the football. Bottom line, he's fumbled the football 6 times this playoffs. 6 fumbles. That's a lot. And for a defense that gets home and gets pressure, how many tough fumbles did we see last week? That's, to me, I think one of the biggest things that Denver can exploit. I
think Nick Benito had 2 strip sacks last week.
Yeah. Exactly, and the one before halftime. That was huge. That strip sack doesn't happen. The fumble, I don't know what Josh Allen was doing. He was holding the ball out to the side like he was trying. I don't know what he was doing with the football. But either way, that fumble before halftime, they walk away with 10 points going into half. They walk away with a huge swing there at the end of half. So I think that's huge in this game. Nick Benino, you mentioned, has been huge. Strip sacks, getting Drake May to the ground. It's been something Denver's really good at, and it's been something Drake May struggled with, is the fumbles. And look, I don't want to say Drake May has a turnover problem, but so far in these playoffs, he hasn't taken good care of the football. So from, I guess, just matchup-wise, what are you looking forward to from Denver's defense, New England's offense? We mentioned the turnovers here. We mentioned Drake May and the fumbling, Broncos defense's ability to get home to quarterbacks and force fumbles. Some matchups you're looking forward to, because this is obviously a New England team that wide receiver wise doesn't necessarily scare you, and a secondary in Denver who's got some really big pieces, headlined of course by Pat Surtain.
Let's put it this way, and you said it perfectly. New England's offensive weapons, they on paper, they're nothing to be afraid of. But I think if you're the Patriots today, you need to figure out where Riley Mosley is on the field. I know it's like I'm just pointing fingers at a guy, but it's the truth. He struggled in coverage all year this year. We have seen teams exploit that and take advantage of that. You need to find matchups, whether that's Kayshon Boutte, whether that's Kyle Williams, Stephon Diggs, whoever the case is, get Riley Moss matched up on one of your guys, and you take shots down the field. It's either going to be a pass interference or it's going to be a completed ball. And that's what you need. And you've talked about it, and you mentioned it perfectly, where this is a very bend, don't break type of defense. You got to score 30, 40-plus touchdowns on this type of team, because once you get 20 going in, it's not, you don't really have a good shot at scoring. Yep. So I think you got to find that matchup with your receivers and Riley Moss and exploit that. It's worked for a lot of teams all year. I don't see it not working now. And Ramondre Stevenson has to get going. We seen him last week when the Patriots were trying to kind of milk that game, just feed him and feed him and feed him. And I know this is a tough team to run the ball against, but you know the deal in the NFL. It's cliche, we understand, but you got to establish the run. You got to continue to control the line of scrimmage, and you have to keep the ball on the ground to tire defenses out. They did that very well last week to ice that game towards the end of it. I think you have to do it again today with Ramondre Stevenson, who is bounced back actually from earlier this year, the fumble issue. Now he's looked very good later on in this portion of the season. He has to have a big game. He needs at least 15 carries.
Yeah, and you're spot on. He has turned it around. I mean, Travion Henderson there for a little bit was kind of the new one for a while. And that was after a bit of a slow start for him. They kind of swapped roles as the year went on. But yeah, I think really this game just in general, it's while the big headline is MVP Drake May and Jared Stidham and the story there, I think it really is a lot of this is going to come down to the ground game. And it's going to come down to limiting the mistakes and controlling time of possession and wearing opposing defenses down. And, you know, I don't defensively, I think this is going to be more of a defensive battle. I mean, I don't expect either of these offenses, even with New England. I know they could have short potential to put up big points, but defensive battles typically end in, okay, who won the time of possession, who was able to kind of control the ground and limit the mistakes the most. I guess that's Mike Vrabel, Sean Payton. I didn't love personally, and I'll ask you this, and then we can kind of get into our predictions and move on to the next game. I personally didn't love the way Sean Payton called last week's game. I thought some of these second half play calls were awful. It reminded me, it was, in my opinion, way too conservative when they were up, 23-10, I believe. I thought he was playing it way too conservative, and I understand you're trying to, just play conservative, not make any mistakes, but I mean, they were kind of running the football and putting themselves into a lot of third and long situations in the third quarter. Like, it's still the third quarter, and that Buffalo offense is more than capable, which they did, of going down and scoring multiple touchdowns and getting back into this game. I hated the Bo Nix run, which some people have a theory that's where the fractured ankle came in, which was in the drive on overtime when they ran it to him, to the left, and it lost like 2 yards. They tried it earlier. It didn't work. They tried it again. It didn't work. Any battles between these two coaches you look forward to? I mean, you look at, obviously, a Patriots defense that schematically is very strong against a Broncos offense with a backup quarterback.
I'm looking for this Patriots defense. They are going to blitz the life out of Jared Stidham, and I know it's going to be a Mike Vrabel thing. And that's what I'm excited to see. And I think you mentioned it perfectly with Sean Payton. That's kind of been the case all year. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. That defense all year has just swept the awfulness of Sean Payton under the rug and bailed them out all year. I mean, this team has not looked good offensively all year. It's not like Sean Payton is this play calling genius and they're putting up big numbers on the board. We've talked about it. I'm going to go back to the game that you mentioned the last time we talked about Denver. They scored 10 points against the Raiders on a Thursday night. The Raiders was a defense that was awful all year long. Like, this offense, we talk about New England's and like their inability to score points and how they don't extend drives and they kind of look like it's, paint waiting to dry. Let's talk about Denver. Like, they have been so bad offensively where even if this team, and this is going to I'm going to go with the what if this team was middle of the pack, we're talking about maybe 15 through 18 range in terms of defense, scoring defense, total yards per game and whatnot, they probably win 8 games, if we're being honest, because that's how bad the offense is. So for today, to answer your question, I want to see how Sean Payton is going to bounce back with a backup QB, but also kind of fixing the flaws of last week against this Mike Vrabel-led team that is aggressive and that can take your offense out of the game in a hurry. This is a game Sean Payton has to prove why his hire, which he's kind of already done it. Of course, I mean, we're talking about them in the AFC title game. Not going to take that away. But you are this play-calling genius like you want to be. You got to prove it today with the backup. You got to score some points.
Yeah, definitely. And coaching's big from a Denver perspective, too. And you're spot on with that as a backup quarterback. You've got to be able to elevate him, puts them in the right situations. As Nick Foles said, I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter. Many other fans have seen it. Patriots defenses rather tend to struggle against backup quarterbacks this time of year. So with all that being said, what's your prediction in this one? Denver comes into this game 4.5-point road dogs or home dogs. Patriots are the road favorites. Actually, the spread has now changed to 3.5, so it's dropped. Opened at 4.5, now 3.5. What's your prediction for this one? 1 seed, 2 seed, Stidham, May. What are your thoughts?
I think I'm gonna go with New England. I think in this situation, obviously the home field is gonna be huge for Denver. The altitude is gonna be huge, but I think I trust Mike Vrabel and Drake May more after we just bashed them for 30 minutes of how they haven't looked good. I think I trust them more than I trust Sean Payton to put Stidham in good situations. And once again, Denver's weapons have not looked great with Bo Nix. I don't see them exceeding with Jared Stidham. Give me New England today in a close one. And I think Denver covers the spread at least. This is going to be a very low-scoring game, but New England wins it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go low scoring. I'm gonna go with 2017. I think it's close. I think, and I'll be honest, I think this is gonna be a game where I actually think Denver's gonna probably get off to a quick start. I could see first drive of the game, Stidham marching down the field and them scoring a touchdown, and everybody watching this game is like, oh crap, this might actually happen. And then over time, I think New England's gonna kind of scratch and claw and find a way to win. It's going to be ugly. I think there's probably going to be some turnovers on both sides of the football. It's going to be a defensive battle. And I agree. I look at New England to win this game. I hope I'm wrong. I want nothing to do with New England in the Super Bowl. And I personally do, while some people probably hate the idea of having a backup quarterback have to go up against that Rams offense or what Seattle's doing, because there's a chance for a blowout. I think the story of Jared Stidham going to a Super Bowl would be pretty crazy and is really what makes the NFL king, is stories like this. So I'm rooting for Stidham, rooting for the Broncos. One half of my hate watch worked last week, so need to go 1-for-1 this week or else we're getting ready to watch another Patriots Super Bowl. All right, moving on now to the NFC, second game of the day. Rams, Seahawks, in front of the 12s in Seattle, 5-seeded Rams, 1-seeded Seattle. Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold. We talk about Jared Stidham. The fact of the matter is Sam Darnold and Jared Stidham are playing in a championship weekend at the same time. That is just crazy. If you told any NFL fan that a couple years ago, I think everybody probably would have thought you were crazy. But here we are. This is kind of two teams that are coming off of two very different performances. You have a Rams team coming off of, a nail biter, another late thriller involving the Bears, where you have that crazy Caleb Williams 4th down play to Cole Kmet in the end zone. They end up losing in overtime with the Harrison Mevis kick. So it was a close game there with the Rams. Another close game with the Rams. Also had a close game against the Panthers, who they let hang around, and a Seattle team who just dominated. Just didn't really have to do too much from a Sam Darnold perspective. Just managed the game. Special teams, Rashid Shaheed opened it up with that kick return. Kenneth Walker had a big day on the ground. I mean, Sam Darnold only had to throw the ball 17 times. He completed 12 of those passes. One of those touchdowns was to JSN. JSN wasn't even involved very much because they didn't need to. The defense was dominant. 49ers' injuries and lack of talent compared to Seattle caught up with them. So just what are your overall thoughts on this matchup with both teams? A Rams team that's played in 2 close contests and a Seahawks team that's played 1 game and dominated.
Shout out Seattle. We've talked about it before with 1 seeds kind of coming out of that bye week. How are they going to look? Seattle put Pierre Belt. They played no games out the jump. Like you said, Shaheed with the opening kickoff touchdown. This is a good football team. I mean, I don't think Seattle fans would have guessed that this is where they would be right now if we asked them, this before the season started. This is a great football team, and you mentioning Sam Darnold only throwing the ball 17 times, that speaks volumes to it. This is a very well-rounded team. I mean, defensively, they are great. Special teams, they are great. Kenneth Walker, finally, when they realized, hey, this is a pretty good back. When Zach Charbonnet is not vulturing touchdowns and carries, Kenneth Walker is a very good bat. And this team is so balanced. And, honestly, for Seattle, I kind of love to see this run because early in the season when DeMarcus Lawrence signed with Seattle, in the interview, he said, Dallas is my home. I will never win a Super Bowl there. That's why I chose to sign with Seattle instead of re-sign with Dallas. And I want to see Seattle win a Super Bowl for that sake. It's like a big middle finger to Jerry Jones. So that would be phenomenal. But back to the football side of it, I mean, the Seattle team they're dangerous. Home field, they're dangerous. And they impressed me last week. For the Rams side of it, they got to get it together. They kind of have to finally figure out how to put all the pieces together because we have not seen that for quite some time. Probably week 15, week 16 is the last time we've maybe seen it. They've struggled, but at the end of the day, that goes to show you what type of coach Sean McVay is, what type of QB Matt Stafford is. This is going to be a very good one, but the Rams got to figure it out. They haven't looked good.
No. I agree with you. And I've been talking to some people this week about this matchup, and everyone's like, oh, the Rams, they're so talented. They're coaching all the way down. And I actually wonder if some people have watched the Rams playoff games because really the last 4 to 5 weeks, you even hear these people on TV. Now, all right, Stephen A. Smith doesn't count, okay? But these other talking heads on TV, they act like the Rams are on this perfect run where they've just played lights out football. I don't understand. And not many people are seeing this with the Rams. They haven't looked that good. They almost blew it against Carolina. You had the bad plays to Puka. There was a couple of those drops, I should say, to Puka Nacua, the misfires to Devontae Adams. Even last week, it wasn't great. I mean, Stafford wasn't great offensively. There hasn't been those big games from Puka at all. I understand they had that great throw to Colby Parkinson against Carolina, but you even go back to late in the regular season where they had the loss to Atlanta. They had the crazy overtime loss to Seattle, but the loss to Atlanta was ugly. Then they had that loss to Carolina. This is going back even a little bit further now, but they haven't looked great. They haven't looked very good for really 4 weeks now. And now they're getting by and they're finding ways to win, but their total margin of victory has been 6 points in 2 games against a Panthers team who is not very good and got in an 8-9, and a Bears team who, yes, was the higher seed and all that stuff, but you still should be able to take care of business against Chicago, which they did. I guess we'll start with the Rams from that standpoint. What have you seen where they've kind of been a tick off? And do you feel that now, to their credit, they're still finding ways to win? Do you feel that this is something where they can kind of snap a finger and wake up today and get back to the team that we saw just a couple weeks ago where, I mean, Puka and Stafford were just going off and they were, Puka was 160, 180 yards every week for that couple week span there. He had the crazy 200+ yard game against Seattle. Is this something where they can do that? Or is, we talk a lot about going into the playoffs hot. This is a Seattle team that's hot right now and are playing pretty perfect football, and a Rams team that's a little choppy. From the Rams' perspective, Stafford and offensively, what do they need to do to kind of get out of this a little bit?
I think they can get on the same page. I mean, I feel like it is harder to find success, and this is going to sound kind of crazy. It's harder to find success against a team that you've only matched up against once because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what they're going to throw out at you. So that's for the case of Chicago and for Carolina. You didn't know what they were going to do, how they were going to game plan. Obviously, we're going to stop Puka, but how are you going to stop Puka? Now for a team where this is the third time these teams have met up. The first time, Rams won that one very low scoring. Neither team really did too much offensively. Second time, obviously, that overtime shootout. Puka had a humongous game, and if I'm correct, I don't think Devontae Adams played that game. So now you get Devontae Adams back for this one. A third time around, you kind of know how these teams are going to prepare to stop you because they showed signs of it from the first time and the second time. I think they can get it going. I think you're going to have to force feed Adams. You're going to have to force feed Puka, whatever the case is. Line them up in different areas. Line them up in the backfield. Whatever it is you have to do, you have to do it. Because this is a Seattle team defensively. You don't want to get in second and long. You don't want to get in third and long. That's when the home field advantage starts coming into play. You don't want those type of things. So you need these receivers. You need Stafford. How they looked earlier in the year, where they were phenomenal. Like this big three was insane. You need them to get going early. You need to take shots. And I understand the Seattle defense is very good. The secondary is very good. But again, like I said earlier, referring to the Broncos Patriots game, this is for all the marbles. You have to take shots. You have to be willing to make mistakes. Not too many mistakes. You lose games that way. But from what we've been seeing of the short game with Matt Stafford, everything kind of in the middle of the field that's not working, you got to put all that behind you today. You have to throw the ball down the field and absolutely test this secondary for you and your guys to get back on track.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so interesting about this matchup is, you mentioned some of the third down stuff, third and long. You've got to stay within third and short, third and manageable, third and short situations. You get to the third and long stuff. Yeah, the crowd gets involved and it's a disaster. I mean, look at San Fran last week on those 3 fourth down attempts. They went 0 for 3 on fourth down. They were 6 of 12 on third down, but still, I mean, you've got to be better than that if you want to go on the road and beat Seattle in this defense. But I mean, that 1 fourth down attempt with the play to use check and he tried to pitch at CMC. Yes. That was like an Adam Gase level play design. I mean, that's coming from Shanahan. I don't know what the heck he was doing with that, but whatever. You knew right then and there the game was over. What I just find so interesting about this Rams offense is, not many offenses have had success against the Seattle defense, and rightfully so. They've been elite all year. They've been elite in their one game this postseason. They completely shut down Brock Purdy and the Niners. But this was a team that went in there a couple weeks ago and went toe-to-toe with this defense and went in there and put up 37 points, even though they lost against this defense. And what I think is just so interesting about today is you mentioned, some of the deep shots and taking chances and the importance of being able to hit those chances and capitalize with Puka and guys like that. And that's going to be big today is having that success that we've seen Stafford and Puka have all year, doing that again today. This was a team that averages 8.9 air yards per attempt. Seattle's defense allows just 4.7. So they average the highest air yards per attempt in the NFL. Seattle averages the lowest among all defenses. So you've got the best. Something's got to give there. You've got the best versus the best. And then you also look at, too, a ton of play action. Rams run a ton of play action. Now, they had success against the play action against Seattle the first time. But this is a Seattle defense that is one of the best against stopping play action. So that's where I'm just curious is this is a Rams team that's clearly not in their stride at the moment. To me, I think it's just so important for them to get off to a quick start because if they can get into a rhythm and have success on the play action, have a big play to Puka early in this game. I mean, you had that whole, the 43-yard touchdown, whatever it was, in that first meet or that second meeting against Seattle. Like early on in this game to get involved, to get going early and get everybody around Stafford involved and have success and do what this Rams offense has done throughout the regular season at most times is huge. It's also just huge. You don't want to fall behind against this crowd. Falling behind against this crowd it's the only venue in this sport that really you have to actually talk about the crowd when you talk about impacting the game. Yep. Like their impact on a game is probably second to none. There's certainly stadiums. I mean, certainly Denver with the altitude, that always plays a role, but this crowd it's deafening. And you saw that last week a little bit with San Fran. I guess from Kyron Williams, who has kind of been – isn't it interesting? He had
rocky.
Yeah, he had the 2 touchdowns last week, but he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities, I guess. I mean, he only had the 13 carries. He had the 21 carries last week. This feels like a game where you'd like to get him involved still, but the Kyron Williams season as a whole has kind of been, rocky would probably be a good way to put it. It's been hard to gauge at times. I mean, it is rocky.
And
It's
you
not
can't
like,
blame him for it.
yeah,
That's the
it's,
thing.
yeah. No, yeah, you go ahead. I have nothing else to say. Yeah.
It's just you can't blame him for it. He's not the one calling the plays. And I've watched so many Rams games where they might have a 10, 11, 12 play drive and they run the ball 2 to 3 times. Everything is play action and Matt Stafford dropping back to throw the ball. And I mean, I understand if it's worked for the majority part of the season, but you have to run the ball for a team that runs more play action than anybody in the league. That starts with being able to run the ball effectively. And we're not just talking about handing the ball off and 2, 3 carries. Like you have to actually be successful in between the tackles, in between the guards of running the ball. And the Rams don't do that too well. And like Rocky's the best way to put it, because you look at Kyron's stat lines and you're like, okay, 13 carries, maybe 2 to 3 catches. Like he's getting the touches, but he's not effective in the touches. So I don't know if that's just the Rams can't block up front. I don't know what the case is, but I felt that way all year, obviously, as a Kyron fantasy owner for a good portion of this year. And we joked about it earlier, but all the throwing the ball in the red zone and Matt Stafford's all his touchdowns 5 yards and under, like you have to run the ball. You have to continue to consistently run the ball, because definitely Carolina game, I can remember, not even that they necessarily got behind, but throw the ball, and now you're trying to run the ball after you're extended the drive on 1st and 10, you don't do anything. Now we're talking about 2nd and 9 because you're trying to force feed these run plays to keep some form of balance, but there's no balance. So I think absolutely Kyron has to, 21 carries last week. He needs to see 20 plus today. Like we've talked about it. It's cliche, but you want the long drives. That's what you need. And Kyron is a great guy to do that with.
Yeah, take the crowd out of it. Have those long extended drives. It's funny because the Kyron Williams, a lot of his touchdowns have been taken away because it's literally just Stafford dropping back and throwing a back shoulder ball to Devontae Adams tons of times in the red zone this season, which is good for the Matthew Stafford fantasy owners. I was one of those, or even Puka Nacua, whatever. He had a lot of those opportunities kind of taken away from him. But, I look at this. It's got to be a game where Kyron Williams has a big day. Really, it could come down to these two running backs. Who has the better day, Kyron Williams or Kenneth Walker? That's kind of potentially one of the biggest, while they're not actually going against each other one-on-one. It's both offenses. If either can get the run game going, that's huge. I think that transitions perfectly into our also one other thing is actually we'll transition into this from the Seahawks perspective. Now, I'll just say this, and you mentioned, your Cowboys, Jerry Jones, rooting interests, I guess, right, would be the way to put it in this game. The Sam Darnold story is the big one. I am rooting for Sam Darnold. I would love to see Sam Darnold go to the Super Bowl. Am I gonna be devastated if he doesn't? No, I don't really. I won't even say I'm necessarily rooting hard for him. If he makes it to the Super Bowl, I'll be happy for him. And I'll certainly root for him if it's against New England. But there's a lot of people out there, Jet fans out there, that are just like, oh no, I can't root for Sam because whatever. Like, can I just say something? The Sam Darnold look, there's a lot of things that we can criticize the Jets for. But there's still people out there that are kind of doing the lull Jets with Sam Darnold, which doesn't make sense. Sam Darnold got traded in 2021. It's 2026. If anything, the teams that should be more embarrassed are Carolina, who had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield in their quarterback room at the same time. He had to go to Carolina, San Francisco, and then finally to Minnesota to find success. Let's not act like Sam Darnold was just with the Jets last year, left, and now is having a ton of success. And we've both talked about this a lot. If it wasn't for that San Fran stop, Sam Darnold's probably still a backup.
Yeah.
There's a chance Sam Darnold's not even in the league right now. Honestly, that San Fran spot completely changed him. And then working with Kevin O'Connell and Shanahan, both of those guys, really, two of the bright minds in the NFL offensively. But let's not act like Sam Darnold's last season with the Jets, he threw 9 touchdown passes, okay? Let's not act like Sam Darnold was lighting the world on fire. Now, they ruined him. Don't get me wrong. But he went to Carolina for 2 years. He then went to San Fran. He was 4 years removed from the Jets before he found his first success last year. Carolina should be more embarrassed, and Minnesota, even more so Minnesota, because they got rid of Darnold for 9. Okay. That is more embarrassing to me than the Jets thing. The Jets, it's so far removed now. So far removed. It would have never worked. I'm still convinced it would have never worked here. I have no sure there's part of me that, what if they drafted Darnold or kept Darnold and maybe drafted JSN eventually? But JSN came out in 2023. Like, Darnold got traded in before the 21 season. He would have had, like, it wouldn't have, they didn't get Garrett Wilson until 2022. Like, Darnold probably wouldn't have been good in 2021. They would have gotten rid of him. Anyway, so it would have never worked. But either way, your thoughts on Seattle and as 9 sits home for the playoffs, may I mention?
Set me up perfectly there. You have to be embarrassed if you're Minnesota. It's a shame. It's a shame. I mean, Sam Darnold has been so good this season. And again, he only threw the ball 17 times last week. But I was wrong about the oblique injury. I mean, maybe that just shows basketball players are soft because these guys here can't play with oblique injuries in the NBA, and they've missed months on hand. When Sam Darnold went out there, and he didn't play great, but he didn't need to. Kenneth Walker had a great game. The defense had a great game, but he powered through it and he got the W, and that's what's important. But I want to see. I know I got Rams to win. Rams are in my Super Bowl prediction. But I wouldn't be mad if Seattle wins. I'll tell you about the DeMarcus Lawrence thing, but redemption stories are always a great thing, and then you see it from Sam Darnold, and I think I 100% agree with you. If he does not go to San Fran and then immediately to Minnesota, he's still a backup quarterback right now. If he even went to San Fran and then went elsewhere, I don't know, went to the Raiders, we're talking about a whole different thing right now with Sam Darnold and how much of a bust he is.
At best, we're talking about like a Stidham situation with Darnold.
Yes.
He would have to go in for a injured quarterback in the playoffs. But yeah, not to cut you off though, but I agree. Like the whole Darnold thing to me is, and look, Darnold's had a very strong year. I mean, it's not quite what he did last season. The 35 touchdowns and the 4,300 yards were ridiculous. He's not quite that, but he's still had a very solid season. He's had his fair share of interceptions, his fair share of turnovers this season. There's been some really bad games. I mean, I look back at the first Rams meeting, he threw 4 picks. Yeah. That's something to keep an eye on in this game. From a Seattle offensive perspective, though, Darnold, this offense versus this excuse me, almost had a sneeze. This Rams defense.
Feed the real 9. Feed Kenneth Walker. He had a great game last week, and that's what happens when a guy that you drafted to be your lead back finally steps in, or you finally feed him. You finally give him the ball to do what it is he was supposed to do. I mean, 19 carries, 116 yards, 3 touchdowns, a big game in the air. Kenneth Walker's been great, and they need to continue to let him be great. And it sucks that it took Zach Charbonnet completely tearing his ACL for him to realize that Kenneth Walker's a good back. But that is what they need. And, back to Sam Darnold again. Again, last week he didn't do much, but when you can run the ball so effectively and you're getting a lot of rack and whatnot, from your playmakers, that is what you need. That is what Sam Darnold needs. Obviously, that oblique is not completely healed. So I'm expecting to see a lot of what we saw last week, just a lot of yards after the catch. Kenneth Walker, big game. And this Rams defense, truthfully, I know it speaks different from what we saw last week at least. But you go back to Carolina, they haven't looked good either. Neither side has looked good for the Rams. So I think this is a team, and the second matchup, they didn't look too good either. They completely got torched. So I think Seattle can find a lot of success once again against this Rams defense. But I can say this time, Sam Darnold, you're going to throw the ball more than 17 times. I think he needs to have a pretty big game as well.
Yeah, I agree. You're gonna have to throw the ball more. It's gonna definitely be a much going to need to be a much bigger game from Darnold, a bigger usage game from Darnold. But I totally agree. It took the Zach Charbonnet knee injury to realize, hey, Kenneth Walker is not a bad running back. He had a very good game last week, did what he needed to do, took a lot of the, pressure, or I should say, I can't think of the word exactly, but a lot of what Darnold needed to do, he kind of took a lot of it off his shoulders, a lot of the work off his shoulders. This is a big game for Kenneth Walker. This needs to be a big game for Kenneth Walker, right? We talk about both these running backs, but Kenneth Walker's ability to have a solid day today, I think, is big, and just take also some of the pressure off of Darnold, where they can have a more of a balanced attack and kind of beat the Rams in multiple ways from a rushing perspective and a passing perspective, because everybody knows, right, Kenneth or JSN, that's obviously a big thing to look for in this game, as it always is. But being able to have a more balanced attack, which at times Seattle hasn't always had that at moments this year, where Kenneth Walker's had some struggles. They gave all those red zone carries to Charbonnet, took all the touchdowns from Kenneth Walker, essentially. But being able to balance things out is big. In terms of, I was looking at one other thing from a Seahawks perspective, just the JSN stuff. What are you projecting for JSN? Is this, and Puka, I guess, is this a big JSN Puka day? Do both these guys go off like we saw when they met a couple weeks ago? Or is this more of a ground game where both running backs do actually have success?
I think it's going to be a little mix of both. I think both running backs are going to have, good games. They're going to play their parts, but I see JSN and Puka both going over 100 yards today. I think they have to. You absolutely have to. I think Devontae has a big game today as well. Maybe not 100, but I think he maybe hauls in a touchdown or two. They're going to need it, but this game is going to come down to whatever quarterback has the better game.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's going to come down to Stafford versus Darnold.
Yeah.
And with that being said, who has the better game and who comes out on top?
I think the Seahawks win it. And I know everyone's probably like, you've talked and hyped up the Rams all year, and they were your Super Bowl pick, and I think Seattle wins it. It's just the home field advantage. That's going to be the big part, and it's just I can't trust the Rams' offense right now. I'm going to go with Seattle.
So now, if you're going Seattle, is that the last? Actually, I'll reveal my pick. As much as I have kind of slightly gone off the Rams wagon a little bit, spread for this game 2.5. Seattle home favorites. Rams the road dogs. I do think the Rams win this game. A little bit more experience. I think they get it done. I think this is a game where they connect offensively again, if that makes sense, where they kind of get back on track. If you think Seattle's winning, is this the last Stafford game we see?
Yes. That's tough. That's tough because you know my conspiracy theory all year with he's retiring already. Sean McVay knows this, so like stat padding for the MVP race.
Yeah, that is
win a Super Bowl. Yes. If you don't win a Super Bowl, at least you win an MVP. It's kind of tough because, if they lose today, Matt Stafford goes into this offseason and he's like, hey, we were a game away from the Super Bowl. Why can't we not run this back and get there next year? But will he want to go through everything you go through, during a season to try to get back when you're not even guaranteed? That's kind of tough. I really think it depends on how this game ends today, especially if they were to lose, how bad they look, how close they come to winning, which is going to be the determining factor if we see Stafford again, 26-27 or not.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that nice having a coach say, okay, we're just going to stat pad this year. And,
that's what it felt like.
And still win games.
That's what it felt like.
My coach can't win games just trying to play football normally. I don't know. I'm so torn on the whole Stafford thing. I honestly think this Stafford thing is just going to turn into like a year-by-year thing. It kind of already is.
Yeah.
Not quite like Rodgers, because Rodgers makes a whole big deal out of it. Stafford won't. But I think if they win the Super Bowl, there's no reason for him to come back. What does he need to accomplish? There's nothing more for him to do. And it's tough because is he going to want to go through another season? Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know. I'm going to lean towards saying probably is. I don't know. It's tough. I don't know. I mean, he'll be, 38 in February. A couple days before, I think right before the Super Bowl, he'll be 38, actually. I think a day before the Super Bowl, February 7th. I didn't even realize that. That's his birthday.
Honestly, I'm going to change my pick. I just feel like it would be malpractice if I just sit here and talk about the Rams all year, and then the game before the Super Bowl, I swap picks. I'm going to stick with the Rams. We're going with the Rams. That was my option, my choice all season long. I'm not going to turn my back on them now. Rams win this one in a shootout. I think it's going to be a shootout today. As we've seen like week 2, this is going to be a shootout.
Does Stafford, and one quick thing, and then we'll move on to the coaches here. Does Stafford retire as a Ram or a Lion? Probably a Lion, right? I don't know.
I think you got to be a Ram. I think
because his biggest accomplishments have come with the Rams.
Yeah, it has to be.
Because let's be honest. If he wins another Super Bowl, now he's already in the Hall of Fame. But if he wins another Super Bowl, that completely cements his legacy. Both of those were with the Rams, so he essentially is potentially not a Hall of Famer if it isn't for this run with the Rams.
100%. This Rams run was special. It was legendary.
Now he's probably still a Hall of Famer, even if you take out the probably.
He didn't do much with the Lions.
No, he didn't. Well, not many people do.
Yeah, good point. Fair point.
Yeah, no, he didn't. I mean, and that's what's crazy about that trade. I mean, Jared Goff got further with the Lions than Stafford ever did. I mean, never won a playoff game with the Lions. Yeah, I mean, he never won a playoff game. So if it wasn't for the Rams, you can't put a guy in the Hall of Fame if he never won a playoff game. Yeah, he probably does go in with the Rams. Either way. Moving on now, a couple quick things before we close things out. Coaching carousel around the NFL. We'll dive into the two big ones here, and then obviously we'll have plenty of episodes moving forward. Next week with no games on, we can even dive into it more. Mike McCarthy going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is, if you're on Twitter, you've probably seen just about every meme to describe this. There's probably other memes that I still haven't seen. But every meme fits what this hire is, whether you want to look at the two guys flipping each other over and it's pretty much the same dude. There's so many. The red collared shirt, the kid opening up this, he's wearing a jacket, he opens up a box, it's the same jacket he's wearing. Do you want to say this is essentially just a fatter version of Mike Tomlin?
That's it. I was at work yesterday. I have a guy I work with who's a Pittsburgh fan, so he asked me what to expect out of Mike McCarthy. I said, all you're going to get is Mike Tomlin that wins maybe 2 to 3 more games. You're going to win 11 games, maybe 12. You're going to have games in the regular season where this is the best team in football. You're going to have other games where they have not practiced for an entire week. You're going to get to playoff time, and you're not going to show up. That is just what the case was with Mike McCarthy. That's always been the case in Dallas, especially those 3 years of, 12-5. And for Pittsburgh, I also feel bad because that means Aaron Rodgers might come back. I think Aaron Rodgers returns at least 1 year. So, oh, boy, did you hate Mike Tomlin there? You're in for it with Mike McCarthy.
This is the prime grass isn't always greener on the other side example, and I'm very curious because we'll get to this too here in a second with the whole Sean McDermott situation in Buffalo. Depending on who they hire, there's probably going to be a lot of fans that kind of feel the same. The thing with Pittsburgh is I don't necessarily think you regressed that coach, but I don't think you got better. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's literally the same exact thing. You're spot on. They might win 11 games instead of 9 or 10, right? They probably are going to go maybe 11-6 instead of 9-8. Great. They're still probably going to lose in the wild card. Maybe they win the wild card and then lose in the divisional round. And I want to make this very clear. Now, I really like Mike McCarthy as a coach. Now, I've never personally had him as a head coach. You have, but I've always for years would want the Jets to hire him. I mean, I would have fired Glenn and hired McCarthy this year in a heartbeat. Why I don't like this hire is Mike McCarthy, to me, is the type of coach that needs to go to a team that hasn't won in a while. And he can just kind of get them back to being relevant, right? The Jets would be that prime example. He probably will never win a Super Bowl. He's hit his ceiling, but he's got a high floor. A low ceiling, high floor. And for a team that's been perennial losers like the Jets, just using them as an example, he's the type of coach that should go there, where he's going to come in, he's going to build a foundation, he's going to win at least 10 or 11 games and get you back on track. And then you eventually try and hire your replacement for him that gets you over the top. But from Pittsburgh's perspective, they don't need that type of coach. They already had that in Tomlin for 18 seasons, who was that high floor, low ceiling. They needed, in my opinion, I think they should have taken a chance on a young offensive mind where you kind of tank for a year, you kind of bottom out a little bit next year, and then you go and try and get your quarterback in 2027 because that's what the Steelers need. They need a quarterback. Like, where is this team headed next season? With Rodgers and McCarthy, they're probably headed to the wild card game again, and that's it. And in 2027, Rodgers is probably going to retire, and they're going to be stuck in this mediocrity. Like the Steelers are in the same spot today as they were a couple weeks ago with Mike Tomlin.
We're being honest.
Maybe 2 more wins in the regular season. That's probably it. Because McCarthy had the 3 12-win seasons. Offensively, things should be better under him. So they should be a little bit better offensively. But, I mean, even Rodgers at this point, he stinks. He's washed.
Sorry, I didn't mean to start to intervene there, but it kind of just clicked that this is, in a sense, the perfect fit for McCarthy, because we talk about how Tomlin to him is just the guy with the red polo. That's been Pittsburgh for the past 10 years. It's the same thing every single year. So, honestly, it makes sense. But then again, I'm right there with you, because it's like, if the hire was just McCarthy, and let's say Rodgers doesn't come back, that gives me the sense that we're not in win now mode. We're going to rebuild mode.
Yeah.
We're going to get you in here for a year. We don't care to win. Whatever it is, congratulations, Cincinnati, for winning the division next year. That's if Rodgers does not come back and they decide to roll out Will Howard or whatever the case is, or even get a bridge that's not Rodgers. If they sign Rodgers back, that tells me we are trying to win right now. We want to win right now, which kind of, once again, sets you back, because if he plays 1 year, you get to the wild card or the divisional, and you lose, you're right back in that same loop of we're not good enough for a very good playoff run. We're not bad enough for a very good pick. So you're right in the middle. Now you're leaning on maybe Will Howard as your starter, in 2027, 2028. I don't understand the move. I mean, the only part of it that maybe I get is, okay, we have an established coach, which is probably, when you look at the coaching carousel, as far as availability, the closest you're going to find to a Tomlin-like arc when it comes to success. But I don't think he's finding success in Pittsburgh, not with what they got going on, and they're just in no man's land.
Yeah, I think this is a couple-year playoff team, and that's probably it.
Yeah.
And they're back to square one in 28, 29.
Yeah.
And then who's the coach then? I don't even know who would be like under the Tomlin. Who would be the Mike McCarthy type then? I don't know which coach now. Maybe McDermott if he goes to another team here and spends 4 years there maybe, and then doesn't win. Yeah. Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Because Harbaugh would be with his third team at that point.
Yeah.
This is McCarthy's third team. Who else? Maybe Stefanski.
Possibility. Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing somebody. There's got to be another coach it's crazy. They're really, maybe Peyton. Maybe. But the thing is, Payton's different though. Like, he's having success.
Oh, Daybor. Maybe we're thinking Daybor if it doesn't work out.
Yeah,
And if he
I'm
does
just
get the
trying to think of
Buffalo
like
job.
I'm trying to think of like a coach that's been with a team for like there's actually a lot of over. I mean, like Shanahan wouldn't necessarily count. Maybe Dan Quinn.
Honestly,
Honestly
yeah.
though, I could see Quinn being canned after this year. If they don't, I could see it. If Washington stinks again, there's no
Yeah.
guarantee Dan Quinn's back. So yeah, the Mike McCarthy thing, I think it's a terrible hire. Not because I don't think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I just don't think he's the right fit there. That's not what Pittsburgh needs. But that's the move they make. And look, maybe we're wrong, but they're not good enough to get over the top. And Aaron Rodgers is not good enough at this point in his career. I don't even know why Pittsburgh fans want Aaron Rodgers back. Like, you talk about being stuck in mediocrity. I'd at least rather say, all right, McCarthy, here's Will Howard. I actually think this might come across as a crazy take. I think there's a better chance of you bumping into something with Will Howard as opposed to Rodgers taking this team to a Super Bowl. Honestly.
I don't
We
think
know
it's
where
that
Rodgers
crazy.
is at this point.
Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, like you said, he's washed. He has completely reached his peak. So you go out there and you roll out Will Howard, who had a year to sit behind Rodgers and learn. Maybe you get something. This isn't a guy that's expected everything to go his way, and he wants to, acquire certain guys that he wants. Like, he's going to go out there and play ball. You don't get that with Rodgers.
And look, I mean, I think the whole I don't know. I mean, it's they're gonna just be stuck at. They get ready for the blowout in the wild card round.
Yeah,
look forward to that. All right. One other quick thing here, Sean McDermott. Before we close things out, what are your thoughts on the Bills getting rid of McDermott? 9 years, could never get it done. We talked a little bit about this. The possibility of him being canned continues to fall short. They move on.
Terrible move by the Bills. I don't understand it. I mean, who are you going to bring in that is going to get this team over the hump? I don't know. The part of it I do understand is, like, in a year where you don't have Lamar, you don't have Mahomes, you don't have Burrow, you still can't get it done. It's a bad look. I 100% get that. But the options out there is not much better. So for a guy that's been there for 9 years and he has so much success in his career as a coach to can him, even though 8-8, career playoff record, doesn't get it done in the playoffs. I just think for Buffalo, you've probably set your organization back a few years, and we're being honest. Still going to make the playoffs. Still good enough to make the playoffs. Still good enough to be competitive in the division. But I don't know who's going to step in and you look at this Bills team and just thinks that they flip a switch and all of a sudden they are a guaranteed Super Bowl contender. Well, Super Bowl lock, let's say.
Yeah, out of the names that they're interviewing, I think Daboll's probably the best candidate.
Yeah.
Personally, just working with Allen and the history there. But, I mean, are we really going to sit here and say Brian Daboll's an upgrade over Sean McDermott? Let's not pretend like he was just forgetting that he was just fired halfway through last season. And I know different situation. You give Daboll a quarterback and it can work out, but we're talking about a guy that's got to be also a head coach. So I don't know. I think it's going to be Daboll. Personally, I think the bigger issue is Brandon Beane. It's tough to win when you have a receiving core that bad. So anyway, Jets, by the way, 7 assistants fired. They fired the defensive coordinator with 3 games left. Tanner Engstrand's still on the staff, but they're taking away his play calling duties. So he's not going to call plays next year. So essentially what the Jets have just done is they keep this terrible head coach and they fired 9 assistants, essentially. They've changed 2. Glenn, after year 1, changed 2 of his 3 assistants, 2 of his 3 coordinators. And what they're going to do is they're going to hire Wink Martindale, who hasn't had success in the NFL for 6 years.
I see their interview with him.
Yeah, great. We're going to get another retread. And Frank Reich is another name that the Jets might bring in. Frank Reich, what are we doing? The offense is stuck in the 1930s right now. What do we want to do? Put in the 1800s? Frank Reich, are you kidding? I don't know if I'll watch I'll watch, but I don't know if I could take a year of Wink Martindale and Frank Reich as these two teams coordinators. What are we doing? It's 2026. God, I saw some Jet fan earlier. Oh, Frank Reich had helped the who was it? Hold on, I gotta check. I gotta check the Frank Reich Wikipedia here. Oh, he helped the Eagles and Nick Foles win the Super Bowl in 2017. That's what I heard. Great, 2017. It's 2026. It's almost 10 years
ago. 9 years ago.
Yep, 9 years ago.
Unk don't got it no more. Let's no.
No, Unk does not have it anymore. We're digging for stats 9 years ago. Josh McCown was playing quarterback for the Jets when that happened.
Oh, man.
Terrible. Still, what is it, right? Still shorter than the Steelers' last playoff win?
Yep.
Because what, their last playoff win was 2016, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, any closing thoughts?
No, that is all. Enjoy your championship Sunday for those who have teams playing. Hopefully, it's not
one day we'll get there.
One day we will get there. 2029, we will get there.
Hey, tank for Tomlin, march for Arch. 2027 for the Jets. Hire Tomlin next year. Draft Arch Manning, and we're in the 2028 title game.
And maybe at this point, Dak is a Minnesota Viking, and Shador Sanders is out there starting with Dion on the sideline as the head coach. Yeah. That's the direction of Dallas. So,
where does 9 go in all of this?
Probably your local Toyota dealership.
Used car salesman.
Yeah, more than likely.
He gives you that look when he's about to sell the car.
Yeah. No.
Anyway. That'll do it. Another episode in the books. Appreciate you all as always. We'll be back next week with more NFL news. And then after that, get ready for the Super Bowl. So appreciate you all as always. Enjoy this final multi-slate of games. 2 games today. Enjoy it. Season coming to a close. Only 3 games left. So look forward to it and talk to you next week.